Have you ever felt like a lost cause, hopeless, despairing, hoping that somebody or something could somehow save you from yourself or from the circumstances that you're in? I think many of us have felt that way at one time or another, or loved people who have. We understand the feeling. I'm Tim Selby from Heart of Steamboat, and I want to begin today by sharing with you a story. It's by a man named Bucky Dan. And Bucky runs a treatment center. Also wrote a book on pastoral responses to addiction. Tells a story about a girl named Jessica. He says this: Jessica was an intelligent, friendly 16-year-old girl who chronically smoked marijuana and had a penchant for running away from home. As we got to know each other, I came to understand the dynamics of our home life. Her mother was an alcoholic who was rude, loud, and verbally abusive. There were times I would call Jessica to learn why she had missed an appointment and hear her mother in the background cursing at Jessica to get the F off the phone. She disliked the series of men her mother engaged in relationships with and spent most of her time, when at home, sitting alone in her locked room, smoking pot and listening to music through headphones. That was her experience of peace. It was very difficult for me in good conscience to tell her to stop using marijuana. She had already been in foster care, where she found more abuse. She'd already been in group homes. She had decided to stay with her mother, come what may, and set a goal of joining the military as soon as she was eligible. It was a realistic aim if she quit using drugs long enough to give the recruiter a clean urine test. She graduated from high school early, and as she approached the age when she could enlist, Jessica agreed to enter inpatient rehab. We had decided that it was her best chance to become drug free. The trouble was that social services had discontinued her Medicaid, without which she couldn't afford the treatment. I made calls, got Medicaid approval, and sent Jessica to get the paperwork. She returned on Friday with a form that had an incorrect ID number. Because of the mistake, she couldn't enter rehab until Monday. That Sunday afternoon, Jessica was found dead, her body dumped in a vacant lot. She had overdosed on heroin. The person who abandoned her body was never found. A promising but pain-filled life was gone. At the funeral, her mother, accompanied by her latest friend, wept. The newspaper reported that another teen druggie had died and did an interview about how awful that was. I, however, knew a person, a life, a human being who had few resources and for whom drugs appeared to offer the only relief. I knew a person who needed a place to feel welcome, a way to make sense of the life into which she had been thrown. She was a person who had been failed by her society, by her mother, and I felt by me as well. There's a lot of pain in Jessica's story here. A lot of pain, a lot of difficulty and hardship. Pain I think that we can relate to. There's pain in another story, a story that can be found in the 5th chapter of the Gospel of Mark. I invite you to read it there if you'd like. In this story, Jesus encounters a man who's possessed by evil spirits, a man who the people in town had tried to chain up. But he breaks those chains and runs through the hills among the tombstones crying out. I think the scripture is trying to say he lives right on the edge of life and death. He runs with those chains still upon him, howling in the night. It says he beats himself with stones. So much hardship, so much pain. Now, I don't believe that evil spirits possess people in the same way we read about them in the scriptures, but I think in our day and age, we know much the same experience as the evils of mental illness that torment us in so many ways. They torment us in the form of addictions or depression or anxiety, anger, chronic feelings of inadequacy, so much hardship, so much pain for the people involved and for the communities that surround them. You know, in this scripture story, the people in town, they had chained him up, which might sound harsh or mean, but there's another way to read that story. They had chained him up perhaps to try to stop him from hurting himself. It says he beats himself with stones. Maybe those people loved that man and they were trying to stop him from hurting himself. We might know this feeling too, as we have loved ones who we try so hard to stop from hurting themselves. And yet sometimes it feels hopeless and we feel helpless. There's a song that touches upon these issues. A song that's become very popular in the modern times. It's a song called Save Me by Jelly Roll. Jelly Roll is an interesting figure. He's maybe a little bit of a rapper, a rocker, and also a country musician. He was in prison. He's been an addict and a criminal, but he found a way to pour himself into music in a way that helped his own life and I think helps the life of many others. I saw some video of a live concert in which Jelly Roll was singing this song, Save Me. And I was so touched and moved by the crowd, like thousands and thousands of people who were so moved and connected to this song. Tears streaming down people's faces, people singing it in such heartfelt ways. Like it's like the whole stadium, everybody was right there with him in the midst of this. I read a line by someone that said about this song, they said, deep down inside, all of us feel like a lost cause. Well, I'm not sure that's true, but I think we probably all have at one point in time known that feeling or loved people that feel that way. Jelly Roll says that he wanted to create a project that felt hopeful. He says, quote, I believe the worst feeling a person can have is the feeling of hopelessness or worthlessness. This is therapeutic music for real people with real problems, he says. And it connects so deeply with people. And along the way, as he's tried to help people in the midst of hopeless or difficult situations and despair, guess who he's got criticism from? Yes, the Christian community, who have criticized him and judged him for somehow not doing it in the right way or good enough. He says this, he says, quote, I never thought I would do something in my life that would make people care to hear my story. So equally, I never thought my story would be judged. He says, it just hurt my spirit. It was all happening while I'm cooking this album. I had Christian people who were judging my faith based on my use of language or marijuana or drinking references. I just felt really cornered. It felt really judgy. Well, the manager of his label had a message for Christians who would question his faith. And he said to them, he said, I would say to them this, he will bring more people to God than 95% of pastors. He is touching an audience that has felt invisible, dismissed. And on this album, there is hope that you can be redeemed. Yeah. Jelly Roll's not perfect. He's not perfect. He's a little messed up. Well, guess who else is not perfect and a little messed up? Like, show of hands. Can I see you out there? Yeah. We're all not perfect. And we're all a little messed up. And these things ought to bring us together, not cause us to judge each other or to see each other in a strange way. These things should bring us together around the struggle or our feelings of powerlessness and hopelessness in the midst of these, what you might call evil spirits of the modern time that torment our lives and cause us such pain and hardship. Jelly Roll says this. He says, I'm just one dude singing songs of the broken. This community, he says, has allowed me to speak on behalf of the depressed, the stressed, the anxious, and the addicted. I'm just documenting what I see and what I know. I've been a drug addict, I've been a loser, and I've been a stealer. And he came to the conclusion that his concerts weren't really just concerts, they were a healing experience. He says he looks at them as a form of church as well. He's not perfect. He continues to battle his own unworthiness, insecurities, stresses, physical and mental health challenges. But even in the midst of all that, he's touching the community. He's living wholeheartedly as he tries to open himself up, to help other people, and to find a way forward for himself. And this song is so beautiful and so touching. I want to read you the lyrics. It says this: somebody save me from myself. I've been so long living in hell. They say my lifestyle is bad for my health, but it's the only thing that seems to help. All of this drinking and smoking is helpless, but it feels like it's all that I need. Something inside me is broken, and I'll hold on to anything that sets me free. I'm a lost cause. Baby, don't waste your time on me. I'm so damaged beyond repair. Life has shattered my hopes and my dreams. There's more, but that's the gist of these lyrics. I'm a lost cause. He feels that way. It's interesting. He begins the song by saying, save me, like he wants help. But then he also says, I'm a lost cause. We see that same thing in the scripture in the Gospel of Mark, as this man who's possessed with these evil spirits. When he sees Jesus, he runs and he bows down before him like, Jesus, help me. But then he shouts out at Jesus, what do you have to do with me? It's like, help me, but I'm hopeless. Save me, but I'm beyond repair. This kind of dualistic feeling that people have. I think sometimes we know this feeling. We want to be saved, we want to be helped, but we feel like a lost cause. We want to be out of our pain, but we don't know how to get there. We want to ease the pain of our loved ones, but we don't know how to make that happen. We want to find peace in ourselves or peace for those we love, but it seems so far away and we don't know how to find it. One of my favorite books is A River Runs Through It by Norman Maclean. It's a little autobiographical book. He writes about his life and his family. And his brother, Paul, is an addict. He's an alcoholic. He's addicted to gambling, and his addictions lead to his death. And late in that book, in Norman and Paul's father's final sermon, their father's a Presbyterian minister. And in his final sermon, he says some words that are so profound and I think apply to so many of us. He says this. He says, each one of us here today will at one time in our lives look upon a loved one who is in need and ask the same question. We are willing to help, Lord, but what, if anything, is needed? For it is true, we can seldom help those closest to us. Either we don't know what part of ourselves to give, or more often than not, the part that we have to give is not wanted. And so it is those we live with and should know who elude us. But we can still love them. We can love completely without complete understanding. Many of us know the depth and the truth of these words. Sometimes those we love who are beyond our reach, but they're not beyond God's. Not the man in the gospel story, not Jessica. And even when they're beyond our reach, we can still love them. And in the end, our love is the deepest and most lasting gift that any of us has to offer. In our church in Steamboat Springs, we've held funerals and memorial services for people who have died from all these struggles, mental health struggles of all forms, suicides, addictions, depression, hardships in many ways. We honor them and their lives and know that God can still reach to them even now. And so in honor of all those we've lost, in honor of all those who this day struggle to get out of bed, to struggle to find peace, to struggle to find any sense of happiness or joy, we lift up this song, Save Me, because nobody is a lost cause. Nobody.